Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell and student Dr. Paul Cottrell. And since the big event in the last 2 days or so, with the passing of the Queen and the new King, King Charles III, I think it is important to cover the first speech of King Charles III. He'll be speaking shortly in about 3 minutes or so. So before that, I want to just have my overall perspective, and then after the speech, I will comment. I'm going to be recording this live relative to the speech that's being projected from England. He'll be speaking at 6 p.m. London time, and but my first observation of this, obviously I'm an American and I don't believe in a monarchy, and I don't think that we should have monarchies, but I do think that today's society is not paying attention to the wisdom of the elderly. I also think that a person like Queen Elizabeth, having so much, so many years on the throne, and seeing so many different heads of state and so many different countries, and going through World War II, and being that generation of passing on from the hardship of World War II, the rebuilding of England, post World War II, through the Cold War, all the way to modern time. She surely is probably one of the most knowledgeable and most experienced, and I think many heads of state would say the most wise. And I think that's the lesson learned from her. It's not about the continuation of the monarchy, because personally I think the continuation of the monarchy probably should end. But Charles is going to be speaking here soon, so I think I'll just be quiet and let him talk.
Changed for the Prince of Wales, as we've known him for so long, and now King Charles III. And if you look at the day that he's had, starting in the seclusion of Balmoral, the Scottish Highlands, having time, I suspect, to reflect on the enormity of this moment, surrounded, of course, by his family. But also for him, of course, this is a week of huge contrasts. And I think it was particularly striking to see today that he really seemed to want to connect with the crowds, as we saw him meeting people, not just looking at the flowers, but spending time to talk, because he is very conscious of this contrast we're going to see, the mourning of a monarch, that very somber reflection about her life, but also the fact that for him, the hard work has already begun. We saw him walking into Buckingham Palace, no longer heir, now monarch, which is where he recorded this address that we are going to hear shortly. These addresses are rare. The Queen in her lifetime only conducted 5 of them. The most recent one, of course, during COVID. One will never forget, where she said, "We will meet again." But now we pause, take time as a country to reflect. This is our opportunity to hear for the first time from a son in mourning, our new king, and a man now expects to lead this country in tribute.
Well, we pause now for King Charles III's first address to the nation.
I speak to you today with feelings of sorrow. Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother. for her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise that destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to you all today. Alongside the personal grief that all my family are feeling, we also share with so many of you in the United Kingdom, in all the countries where the Queen was head of state, in the Commonwealth and across the world, a deep sense of gratitude for the more than 70 years in which my mother, as Queen, served the people of so many nations. In 1947, on her 21st birthday, she pledged in a broadcast from Cape Town to the Commonwealth to devote her life, whether it be short or long, to the service of her peoples. That was more than a promise. It was a profound personal commitment which defined her whole life. She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion as sovereign never wavered through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. In her life of service, we saw that abiding love of tradition, together with that fearless embrace of progress, which makes us great as nations. The affection, admiration, and respect she inspired became the hallmark of her reign. And as every member of my family can testify, she combined these qualities with warmth, humor, and an unerring ability always to see the best in people. I pay tribute to my mother's memory, and I honor her life of service. I know that her death brings great sadness to so many of you, and I share that sense of loss beyond measure with you all. When the Queen came to the throne, Britain and the world were still coping with the privations and aftermath of the Second World War, and still living by the conventions of earlier times. In the course of the last 70 years, we have seen our society become one of many cultures and many faiths. The institutions of the state have changed in turn. But through all changes and challenges, our nation and the wider family of realms, of whose talents, traditions, and achievements I am so inexpressibly proud, have prospered and flourished. Our values have remained and must remain constant. The role and the duties of monarchy also remain, as does the sovereign's particular relationship and responsibility towards the Church of England, the church in which my own faith is so deeply rooted. In that faith and the values it inspires, I have been brought up to cherish a sense of duty to others and to hold in the greatest respect the precious traditions, freedoms, and responsibilities of our unique history and our system of parliamentary government. As the Queen herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation. And wherever you may live in the United Kingdom, or in the realms and territories across the world, and whatever may be your background or beliefs, I shall endeavour to serve you with loyalty, respect, and love, as I have throughout my life. My life will, of course, change as I take up my new responsibilities. It will no longer be possible for me to give so much of my time and energies to the charities and issues for which I care so deeply. But I know this important work will go on in the trusted hands of others. This is also a time of change for my family. I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla. In recognition of her own loyal public service since our marriage 17 years ago, she becomes my Queen Consort. I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much. As my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me. He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades. Today, I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I've been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty. With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the centre ground, where vital help can be given. I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives overseas. In a little over a week's time, we will come together as a nation, as a Commonwealth, and indeed a global community, to lay my beloved mother to rest. In our sorrow, let us remember and draw strength from the light of her example. On behalf of all my family, I can only offer the most sincere and heartfelt thanks for your condolences and support. They mean more to me than I can ever possibly express. And to my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late Papa, I want simply to say this: thank you. Thank you for your love and devotion to our family and to the family of nations you have served so diligently all these years. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
First address to the nation by King Charles III. Let's just discuss that briefly with our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills. And Rhiannon, it was moving, it was touching, it was family-centred, but also reflecting on the task ahead.
I think it was a incredibly warm.
So that was King Charles III, first speech to his nation and to the world at large. And I think that anyone that has lost a family member, especially a parent, especially during the COVID era, that is a difficult time. And I can understand, because I lost my mother in January to COVID, you know, the rawness of losing a parent. I think the speech was well balanced in terms of his thoughts about his mother and his thoughts about the Queen and his responsibility going forward in leading his nation. Again, Americans typically in our ethos don't subscribe to monarchs and do not subscribe to royalty. We kind of have our own royalty, and that's like Hollywood, or people that have exuberant amount of money, like billionaires, right? That's kind of like the new aristocracy in the United States. But I do think that it is important to reiterate what he stated in his speech, and that is duty to country. Duty to country and to tradition is important. And that when you have a society that doesn't have duty to country and is laissez-faire with tradition, then you start ending up slowly moving into a society that is degrading. And these traditions could be at the governmental level, where there is the transition of power. These traditions can be of religious faith between the different holidays, or national holidays, you know, Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, the Christmas holidays. You know, these are important. And when you have a society that doesn't stick to tradition and doesn't have duty to country, you will end up having a society that is going in a downward spiral. The problem comes in is when you have your traditions that are of a monarch, right? You know, the world is moving away from this kind of concept. The royal family knows that, and this is part of the reason why it's going to be shrunken down, because of costs and because it is of an older era. But there are probably two places in the world that needs the respect of other nations, and that is the traditions that the British have with the monarchy, and also the traditions that Japan has with the emperor. They're more cultural than absolute in prior years. But we as Americans, right? And I have a lot of UK and Australian viewers too, but speaking to the Americans right now at this moment, we need to have this idea of duty to country, duty to the service to our fellow citizens. This is an important concept that I think that we can learn from the Queen. And so my condolences to the family that has lost their mother, their grandmother. And my condolences to a country that has lost a rock that has transitioned them from the end of World War II all the way through the rebuilding and into the modern age. And the wisdom that Queen Elizabeth had through experience. So, lesson learned, duty to country, be steadfast, put in the time, and gain the wisdom. And for the younger generation out there, to be able to realize that the older generation has wisdom to pass on to you, and that what you think may not necessarily be true because of lack of experience. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my work. I have 3 channels on YouTube. All the links are in the description of all my videos, so just click the links. I also have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe there. And to help support my work, please subscribe to Patreon. And for a nominal fee, you help support my channel, and I can further on do these commentaries about multiple subjects. Thank you for listening, and have a nice night.